The death of Tupac Shakur is one of the biggest mysteries in hip-hop. Pac was such a legendary figure, and the details around his death seem so wild. It's hard not to question what really happened. According to his former business partner Suge Knight, Tupac was never actually killed and is still alive to this day. Let's take a closer look at what really went down with the murder of Tupac Shakur. Tupac Amaru Shakur was born in East Harlem in 1971. His mom, Afeni Shakur, was a political activist and member of the Black Panther Party, who named the rapper after Tupac Amaru, the revolutionary from Peru. When Tupac was in the 8th grade, his family relocated from New York to Baltimore, where he attended the Baltimore School for the Arts. Here, he studied acting, jazz, and poetry, and became very creative. In 1988, Pac moved to Marin City, California, which is in the Bay Area, about 5 miles outside of San Francisco. He started rapping in 1989 under the name MC New York, but he debuted as Tupac in 1991 when he featured on the Digital Underground single, Same Song. Not long after that, he was featured on the soundtrack to the album Nothing But Trouble and dropped his first solo album, Tupacalypse Now. The album peaked at number 64 on the Billboard chart and was certified gold in 1995. But the album also attracted a lot of controversy after a man named Ronald Ray Hubbard would kill a Texas Highway Patrol trooper, and his defense attorney would claim that he was influenced by Tupac's themes of police brutality. The album would face a lot of criticism from Dan Quayle, the Vice President of the United States at the time, and instantly made Pac a controversial figure. Pac would release his second album, Strictly For My in 1993, which debuted at number 24 on the Billboard charts. Pac was slowly getting more and more popular, and he was getting closer to the West Coast gangster rap sound that he's known for today. But while Pac was blowing up, he faced tons of legal controversies throughout the early 1990s, eventually sending him to jail in 95. In 1991, he filed a lawsuit against the Oakland Police Department for allegedly beating him up just for jaywalking.
Police officer stopped me on the sidewalk and asked to see my ID. They sweated me about my name. They were charging me with jaywalking.
He sued him for $10 million, but the case settled out of court for only $43,000.
I called this press conference to announce that I have filed a $10 million claim against 2 Oakland police officers and the city of Oakland on behalf of Tupac.
In 1992, Pac was signing autographs in the parking lot of one of his shows in Marin City, and suddenly a fight broke out. Pac was carrying a Colt Mustang pistol and drew it to protect himself. At some point, he allegedly dropped it on the ground, and someone else picked it up, accidentally letting off a shot. That shot hit a 6-year-old boy named Quaid Walker Teal, who was riding his bike at a schoolyard 100 feet away. The boy was hit in the forehead and killed instantly. No one was ever arrested for the shooting, but the boy's family filed a wrongful death lawsuit that settled out of court for $300,000 to $500,000. In 1993, 2 brothers and off-duty cops named Mark and Scott Whitwell were out having a drink with their wives. They were crossing the street when a car Tupac was driving almost hit them. They were pretty drunk at the time, and they started an argument with Pac and everyone else in the vehicle. Another car pulled up as backup, and the Whitwells both ran away. As they were running away, Tupac allegedly shot one of them in the ass and the other in the leg and back. Pac was later charged for the shooting, but Whitwell was also charged with shooting at Tupac's car and making false statements to investigators. The charges were later dropped against everyone involved. Pac just couldn't stay out of trouble. The same year, he was accused of throwing a microphone and waving a baseball bat at a rapper named Chauncey Wynn during a concert at Michigan State University. He also beat up director Alan Hughes on the set of the film Menace to Society, which he originally had a role in.
Tupac Shakur, of course, is no stranger to controversy. Last week in LA, he was convicted of assaulting filmmaker Alan Hughes last year.
Plus, he was convicted of a 3rd-degree sexual assault after a woman accused him and 3 other men of assaulting her in a hotel room in New York. He was sentenced to 18 months to 4.5 years for the crime in 1995, but released later that year after Suge Knight posted his $1.4 million bond.
Rap star Tupac Shakur is free on bail tonight after his indictment on the sexual assault on one of his fans.
Throughout this time, Pac's music career and celebrity image just kept getting bigger and bigger. He dropped his 3rd album, Me Against the World, in March 1995, which many consider to be one of his best projects. But he had so many controversies and legal bills to pay that by 95, he was almost broke and looking at spending the next few years in prison.
Merry Christmas to everybody. Merry Christmas to the press. I appreciate the present you've given me for giving me a fair trial and a fair shot at justice. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for just destroying everything I worked for the past 22 years. And a happy new year to you too. You did your job. I'm out of money.
That's when Suge Knight came to him and convinced Tupac to sign with Death Row Records. Suge grew up in Compton, California, and was a football and track star in high school. He played football at El Camino College and later transferred to the University of Nevada. He was eventually drafted by the Los Angeles Rams in the 1987 draft, but was cut during training camp. After leaving the NFL, he found work as a concert promoter and bodyguard for musicians like Bobby Brown. He formed his first music publishing company in 1989 and made his first check after Vanilla Ice used a sample from his song by his client Mario Johnson. According to rumors, Suge and his crew held Vanilla Ice by his ankles off a balcony after confronting him several times over the sample. Both Suge and Ice denied this rumor, but the rapper did end up signing over a significant amount of royalties from his hit song Ice Ice Baby to Mario and Suge. Not long after that, he started managing acts like DJ Quick and the DOC, who introduced him to NWA. Suge, Dr. Dre, and the DOC would then found Death Row Records and vowed to make it the Motown of the 90s. But just like Pac, throughout his come up, Suge would be the target of controversies and feuds within the industry. In 1993, Death Row would get into a public feud with Luther Campbell from the 2 Live crew, and Suge was spotted carrying a gun at a hip-hop convention in Miami that year. Suge was also known to be affiliated with the Bloods, and in '94, he opened a nightclub in Las Vegas called Club 662. The number 662, spelled out on a telephone keypad, spelled out MOB, member of the Bloods. Then, in 1995, he pled no contest to assaulting 2 rappers at a Hollywood recording studio and was sentenced to 5 years of probation. So when Suge met Tupac, they immediately clicked. There were 2 major figures in hip-hop who were hated by the media and constantly criticized for their glorification of violence and anti-establishment views. But while Tupac was struggling, Suge was still making millions from hit albums on his label like Dr. Dre's The Chronic and Snoop Dogg's Doggy Style. He agreed to help Pac out of the situation he was in, and they formed a partnership that would last up until Tupac was murdered a year later. Pac signed to Death Row Records and was released from Clinton County Correctional Facility in October 1995. Not long after that, Suge would travel to New York for the 2nd annual Source Awards, where he famously took the stage and dissed Diddy from Bad Boy Records. He dissed Diddy for appearing in his artists' videos and collaborating on their songs, even though he was also trying to be a record label CEO. He also invited any artist who wanted a serious label run by serious executives to come to Death Row.
And one other thing I'd like to say, any artist out there want to be an artist and want to stay a star, and don't want to have to worry about the executive producer trying to be all in the video, all on the record, dancing, come to Death Row.
This is the moment that really let fans in on the beef that was brewing between the East and West Coast music scenes. Suge and Diddy had been beefing for a while, but this was the moment that fans started choosing sides over which label they were rocking with. At one point, Suge went to New York and paid a visit to Uptown Records, where Diddy started his career as an intern. Somehow, Suge managed to convince all the major artists that Diddy had signed to the label to sign to his own management company. This included major acts like Jodeci and Mary J. Blige. Then, on September 24th, 1995, both Diddy and Suge were in attendance at Jermaine Dupri's birthday party in Atlanta when they got into a heated argument. Suge was with his bodyguard, Big Jake Robles, who was also a member of the Bloods. The fight escalated to the point that Diddy's childhood friend and bodyguard, Anthony Wolf Jones, pulled out a gun on Big Jake and was shot and killed. Over 20 years later, Wolf's death remains unsolved, and Diddy testified in court, and he wasn't even with his bodyguard that night. But it showed that the beef between Bad Boy and Death Row was getting serious. In 1996, Pac released his double album, All Eyes on Me, which many consider to be his best record and one of the greatest projects of all time. It debuted at #1 on Billboard and sold 566,000 copies the first week. Pac was living the high life and was one of the most popular artists in the country. But he could only enjoy his success for so long, as he would be murdered later that same year outside a Mike Tyson fight in Las Vegas. On September 7, 1996, Tupac attended the Mike Tyson vs. Bruce Seldon fight at the MGM Grand Casino in Las Vegas. After the fight, Tupac and his bodyguards were leaving the casino when they got into a fight with a man named Orlando Anderson in the lobby. Anderson was a member of the Southside Compton Crips who were beefing with the Bloods in Death Row. A few months prior, Anderson had been involved in an altercation at Lakewood Mall where he and his crew assaulted a man named Trayvon Lane, who was a member of Death Row, and snatched his chain. Lane ended up seeing Anderson at the fight that night and told Suge to take care of him. After the fight, Suge and Tupac got into a car and left the casino. They were stopped at a traffic light at the intersection of Flamingo and Duval when a white Cadillac pulled up alongside them and the passenger started letting off shots. Tupac was hit 4 times and Suge was grazed in the head. Pac was taken to the hospital and put into a medically induced coma and officially died 6 days later on September 13, 1996 at just 25 years old. It's now been almost 25 years since Pac was killed, and yet no one has ever been arrested for the murder. While some fans are convinced that his murder was orchestrated by Diddy as a part of the East Coast-West Coast beef, others say it was Anderson's crew who were seeking payback. Another theory is that Suge himself arranged the hit after rumors started circulating that Pac was unhappy with the situation at Death Row and looking to get out of his deal. The rumors were also fueled by the fact that the police investigation had so many holes in it. A member of Tupac's entourage named Yaki Gaddafi told police that he could identify the killer, yet they never followed up with him and he would be murdered 2 months later. Bad Boy star rapper Biggie Smalls would be murdered only 6 months after that, which added to the rumors that both murders were the result of the East Coast-West Coast beef. Biggie and Tupac were once friends and collaborators who had a falling out after Tupac was robbed at gunpoint in the lobby of Quad Studios in NYC. He accused Biggie of setting him up, and after that, they would send diss tracks back and forth at each other. This included the infamous Hit 'Em Up, where Tupac claimed he slept with Biggie's wife. But despite this heated rivalry, no one from Biggie's camp was ever investigated for the murder. In 1997, Tupac's mom, Afeni Shakur, sued Death Row Records for mishandling her son's finances and stealing millions of dollars from him. Many believe that this provided even more evidence that Suge may have had something to do with the murder. Just a week before he was killed, Tupac fired his lawyer, David Kenner, who also represented Death Row, and drafted his contract with the label. Plus, Suge was the one who invited Tupac to the fight and could be seen on surveillance footage from the MGM lobby making a phone call right before he and Pac got in the car. Another strange detail is that Knight claims that a bullet grazed his head, but this was never verified by any police officers or hospital staff.
I got shot in the head, got grazed some other places, but I still got the bullet in my head. It's still there.
Then, in July 2018, a man named Dwayne Keith D. Davis, a member of the Southside Crips, who was a childhood friend of Eazy-E and the uncle of Orlando Anderson, confessed to playing a role in Tupac's murder. He claims that he was a passenger in the white Cadillac that night and he had been paid $1 million to kill Tupac by Diddy. He refused to name any other passengers, but confirmed that Anderson, who had been killed in '98, was the shooter. Diddy denied these rumors and still maintains his innocence. At the time of the confession, Davis was looking at doing 25 years in prison for an unrelated crime and may have been trying to use the confession as leverage. Like many young celebrities who died under mysterious circumstances, many fans believe that Pac is still alive and faked his own death and that he's hiding somewhere in a foreign country. In 2015, news reports started coming out claiming that a man named David Myers claimed to have helped Tupac fake his death and that Suge was in on the plot as well. This theory seemed to be backed up by an interview Suge did on TMZ where he claimed that Tupac was still alive. Suge says, "If you think about it right, why do you think nobody's been arrested if they said they didn't want to kill Tupac? Because Tupac not dead. If he was dead, they would be arresting those dudes for murder. You know he's somewhere smoking a Cuban cigar." Suge also mentioned that he's not the one who killed Tupac. He's the one who protected Tupac and that he knows the rapper's out there somewhere smoking a Cuban cigar. In this day and age, with all the security cameras and surveillance technology, if Tupac was still alive somewhere, he'd have to be deep underground to avoid getting caught. But then again, anything is possible. It seems likely that fans will never have a clear answer as to who killed Tupac. There are too many holes in the investigation, and most of the people who are involved are either dead or keeping their mouths shut. At least Pac's memory has lived on through the music, and he'll be remembered as one of the greatest rappers of all time.